Welcome to our deep dive into agritourism.
Sounds fun.
Today, we're going to really zero in on what's happening nationally and what it all means, specifically for those of you in Oklahoma.
Great.
We've got a stack of articles and legal analyses to unpack, so get ready for some fascinating insights, I think.
Well, what's fascinating to me is this blend of agriculture, tourism, and the law. It creates a pretty dynamic landscape that we're going to explore today.
Yeah.
We're going to look at everything from, definitions and exciting opportunities for both landowners and visitors, all the way to the legal side liability risks and how to protect yourself.
That's the important part.
Think of this deep dive as your shortcut to informed decision-making. Whether you're a seasoned farmer, someone looking to diversify, or just curious about this whole agritourism scene.
Check.
And a real quick disclaimer before we really get started. This deep dive is for educational purposes only. It's not a substitute for actual legal advice from a qualified professional.
Right. Okay, so let's dive in. First things first. What exactly are we talking about when we say agritourism?
That's a great question, and it's a great place to start. The USDA defines agritourism as a business that connects agricultural production with tourism experiences.
Yeah.
It's all about bringing visitors to a farm or ranch to entertain and educate them. And of course, generating some additional income for the landowner.
So we're talking about everything from, those classic pumpkin patches and corn mazes to things like farm-to-table dinners, winery tours, you pick berry farms, all sorts of things like that.
The possibilities are quite diverse. And here in Oklahoma, there's a ton of untapped potential.
Definitely. And that untapped potential, I think, is reflected in a statistic from the 2012 Census of Agriculture, which found that only 5% of farms were engaged in agritourism activities. So that means there's huge room for growth in Oklahoma, especially given our rich agricultural heritage. Now, I think this is where it gets really interesting. There's a case from Oregon, Stoller Vineyards, that highlights how even seemingly simple activities can raise some complex legal questions.
You're right. That case is a really great example. Stoller Vineyards wanted to add a tasting room and host events, and that sparked a debate about what actually constitutes farm use under Oregon law.
Interesting.
And that same question is becoming more and more relevant as agritourism expands here in Oklahoma. Landowners need to understand how their activities are classified and how that impacts things like zoning regulations and legal protections.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Speaking of legal protections, let's talk about the why behind agritourism.
Sure.
What are the driving forces behind its growth, and why are so many people jumping on board?
Well, agritourism offers a whole range of benefits for both landowners and those who participate. For landowners, it's a way to diversify their income streams, which is crucial in today's agricultural market where prices can be volatile.
Makes sense. It's about having multiple revenue streams, not putting all your eggs in one basket, so to speak.
Exactly. And it's not just about bringing in extra income. It also allows farmers and ranchers to directly market their products to consumers, building those relationships and brand awareness that are so valuable in today's market.
And let's not forget the educational aspect. Agritourism gives people, especially those who live in urban areas, a chance to learn firsthand about where their food comes from and how farms actually operate.
Yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity to bridge that gap between urban and rural communities and foster a deeper appreciation for agriculture and the people who work so hard to put food on our tables.
Absolutely. But of course, as with any venture, there are inherent risks involved with agritourism, and it's important to acknowledge those as well.
Yeah.
I know we have some examples from real-life court cases that really highlight the potential dangers out there.
Yes, unfortunately, there have been accidents and lawsuits that really demonstrate why careful planning and risk management are absolutely essential in agritourism.
For instance, there's a tragic hayride accident in Maine that resulted in a fatality and a substantial settlement. It's a stark reminder of how important vehicle safety and emergency preparedness are, not just for hayrides, but for any activity involving transportation on the farm.
Yeah, and it's not just about vehicles. There was a case in Oregon where a woman sued a pumpkin patch after being injured while jumping from a hay wagon. It might seem like a simple activity, but it really highlights how accidents can happen even in seemingly low-risk environments.
And it seems like inflatable bounce houses have also been the source of several lawsuits raising concerns about proper installation, supervision, and those wind safety protocols.
You're absolutely right. And those cases highlight the need for landowners to really think through the potential hazards of any activity they offer and take steps to mitigate those risks.
And we can't forget about the risks associated with animal interactions. There was a case in Minnesota where a child became seriously ill from E. coli exposure at a petting zoo, leading to a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. It's a sobering reminder of the importance of hygiene, proper hand-washing facilities, and having clear safety protocols in place for any activity that involves animals.
Yeah. These cases are certainly concerning and emphasize that safety should always be the top priority in agritourism. But it's also important to remember that these risks go both ways. Landowners need to be aware of the potential liability they face if something does go wrong.
Right. Even if an accident isn't their fault, landowners can still be held liable. Which is why understanding the legal landscape here in Oklahoma is so crucial. I know we have the Agritourism Activities Liability Limitations Act, the Livestock Activities Liability Limitation Act, and the Recreational Use Statute to consider.
Okay.
Could you break those down for us in plain English?
Of course. Navigating legal jargon can be tricky, so let's try to simplify it. The Agritourism Activities Liability Limitations Act is designed to protect those involved in agritourism from liability if an injury is considered an inherent risk of the activity.
So inherent risks, does that mean risks that are kind of unavoidable? They just come with the territory? Like
Yeah.
the uneven terrain of a farm, the unpredictable nature of animals, even the possibility of someone tripping over a pumpkin vine.
Exactly. Those are all great examples. If a visitor is injured because of one of these inherent risks, the landowner might be protected from liability under the law.
But I imagine there are some exceptions to that protection, right?
Absolutely. If the landowner was negligent, didn't take reasonable safety precautions, or failed to warn visitors about known dangers, they could still be held liable. These liability limitations are not a free pass to ignore safety concerns. Landowners still have a responsibility to create a safe environment for everyone who visits their property.
That's an important point to emphasize.
Yeah.
So each of these laws has specific definitions of requirements that landowners need to be aware of.
Yes, and they can get quite specific. For instance, Oklahoma's Livestock Activities Act has a unique provision allowing written agreements to extend liability waivers, which can be a valuable tool for landowners who have livestock on their property.
So it sounds like those waivers could provide an extra layer of protection, but I imagine they need to be drafted very carefully to hold up legally.
You're absolutely right. They must meet certain legal standards to be enforceable. Now, beyond these specific Oklahoma laws, it's also important to look at how recent court decisions across the country are shaping the legal landscape of agritourism and what we can learn from them.
I'm glad you brought that up because court cases really give us a real-world glimpse into how these laws are interpreted and applied.
Yeah.
They can offer some valuable insights into potential pitfalls and strategies for risk mitigation.
Exactly, and they help us understand the nuances of these laws and how they might play out in different situations. For example, there was a case in North Carolina where a shooting range on a farm was deemed not to fall under agritourism exemptions, highlighting how important it is to understand the specific definitions and boundaries of agritourism in each state.
So even though it was on a farm, the court didn't consider that specific activity to be part of agritourism. That's an important distinction.
It is. And then there's a case from Ohio that involved a wedding barn and a lengthy legal battle over whether weddings qualified as part of the agricultural exemption tied to wine production on the property.
Interesting.
It demonstrates the complexities of land use and zoning when it comes to agritourism, especially as these activities become more diverse and elaborate.
Yeah, I can see how those lines can get blurred.
Yeah.
These cases definitely highlight the need for clarity and careful consideration when planning agritourism activities.
Absolutely. And there's one more case I think is particularly important. It's Green v. St. George's Episcopal Church from Tennessee, which clarified that even if a landowner is immune from liability under state law, a court can still determine fault. While the landowner might not have to pay damages, their actions can still be scrutinized, and it could impact other parties involved, like an insurance company.
So even with those immunity protections in place, landowners still need to be proactive in managing risks and prioritizing safety. It's not enough to just rely on the law. They have to take practical steps to minimize those potential dangers.
You hit the nail on the head. That proactive approach is what we'll explore next as we delve into specific risk mitigation strategies for agritourism operations here in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
It's all about taking what we've learned about the legal framework and turning it into actionable steps that can protect both landowners and visitors.
Sounds like a good plan.
Okay, so let's shift gears now and actually dive into those practical steps that landowners and participants can take to make agritourism safer and more enjoyable for everyone.
Yeah, I'm ready to get into the nitty-gritty of how we can actually put this knowledge into action.
That's the goal, to give you some actionable takeaways.
Yes.
And the first thing we need to address is site safety.
Okay.
Landowners should be conducting regular inspections of their property, looking for any potential hazards. Think about things like uneven terrain, loose railings, or equipment that might need maintenance.
So it's like giving your property a thorough safety check before you invite guests over, making sure everything is in good working order.
Precisely. And clear signage is also crucial.
Right.
Visitors need to know where they can and cannot go, what activities are permitted, and any specific safety rules they need to follow.
And those posted rules aren't just for show, are they? I imagine they can actually help protect landowners in the event of a lawsuit.
You're absolutely right. If a visitor ignores a clearly posted rule and gets injured, it can actually strengthen the landowner's defense. It demonstrates that they took steps to inform visitors about the potential risks.
So documentation is key, just like in any other business.
We're talking about things like waivers, incident reports, inspection logs, any records that demonstrate the landowner's commitment to safety.
Exactly. Those records can be invaluable if a claim does arise. Now, let's move on to product safety, which is especially important for farms that sell food or other products directly to consumers.
Of course, we want to make sure those delicious farm-fresh goodies are safe to eat.
Absolutely. Proper labeling is crucial, and that includes listing ingredients, potential allergens, and any relevant safety warnings. Consumers need to have all the information they need to make informed decisions.
And it's not just about the production process itself, right? Handling and storage are equally important to ensure the safety of those products.
You nailed it. We don't want to compromise safety after all that hard work that goes into producing those goods. Now, let's shift our focus to employee safety, which is often overlooked in agritourism.
Yeah.
Many operations rely on seasonal or part-time workers, so clear training and safety protocols are essential. Even experienced farmhands might need a refresher on safety procedures when new activities or equipment are introduced. It's all about keeping everyone on the same page and minimizing those risks.
And appropriate supervision is key, especially for younger or less experienced workers. We want to ensure that everyone understands their role, knows how to use equipment safely, and is working in a safe environment.
Speaking of safety nets, we can't forget about insurance. It's a crucial part of risk management for any agritourism operation.
Adequate coverage is absolutely essential. And landowners should consider business liability, product liability, and workers' compensation insurance. It's about protecting yourself financially in case the unthinkable happens.
It's about having that peace of mind knowing that you're covered if an accident occurs, even if it's not your fault.
And it's important to work with an insurance agent who understands the unique risks of agritourism. They can help you tailor a policy that meets your specific needs and provides adequate protection.
That's great advice. Now let's talk about something that can be a bit more intense: emergency preparedness. It's not always pleasant to think about, but it's better to be prepared than caught off guard.
You're right. It's all about planning for those worst-case scenarios so you can react quickly and effectively if something does happen. Landowners should develop a clear action plan for various emergencies like fire, injuries, severe weather events, or even an active shooter situation.
Wow. So it's about thinking through those scenarios in advance, having procedures in place, and making sure everyone on the property knows what to do in a crisis.
Exactly. And don't forget to train your staff on these emergency procedures. Regular drills can help ensure that everyone knows their role and can respond calmly and efficiently in a real emergency.
It's about turning those procedures from words on paper into actions that become second nature. Now, beyond these practical steps, I know there are some fantastic resources available to help agritourism operators here in Oklahoma.
Absolutely. There's a wealth of information and support out there, and it's important to take advantage of it. The National Agricultural Law Center is a great starting point. They offer a ton of information on agritourism law, risk management strategies, and best practices.
And closer to home, the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service provides some valuable guidance on all sorts of agricultural topics, including agritourism. They offer workshops, publications, and even one-on-one consultations to help landowners navigate this complex world.
Yeah, they're a fantastic resource, and don't underestimate the power of networking. Connecting with other agritourism operators can provide invaluable insights, support, and shared experiences.
It's about learning from each other's successes and challenges and building a community of support.
Exactly. Now, I know we've covered a lot of ground here, but I think it's important to distill this information into some key takeaways for our listeners.
I agree. Let's bring it all together and make sure everyone walks away with a clear understanding of the most important points.
Okay, so the key takeaway here is that agritourism in Oklahoma is a dynamic and exciting field with immense potential. But success requires careful planning, proactive risk management, and a solid understanding of the legal landscape.
It's about having all those pieces in place to create a sustainable and thriving operation.
Right.
That means understanding the legal framework, taking those practical steps to mitigate risks, and tapping into those valuable resources that are available.
And for those who are thinking about participating in agritourism activities, remember that it offers unique experiences and a chance to connect with rural Oklahoma, but it's essential to be aware of those inherent risks involved and follow safety guidelines. Listen to those instructions, pay attention to your surroundings, and just use common sense.
We all have a role to play in making agritourism safe and enjoyable, whether we're landowners or visitors.
Now, before we move on to our final thoughts, I want to emphasize that what we've discussed today is for educational purposes only. It's not legal advice, and if you have specific questions or concerns, it's always best to consult with a qualified attorney who can provide guidance tailored to your situation.
That's an important disclaimer. And it leads perfectly into our final part, where we'll explore a thought-provoking question that will hopefully leave you pondering the future of agritourism in Oklahoma. So as we wrap up our deep dive into agritourism, I think it's time to zoom out and consider the bigger picture.
Yeah, what's fascinating to me is how agritourism isn't just about, individual farms or businesses. It's about the future of rural communities as a whole.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about that connection.
Well, think about the potential here. Agritourism has this incredible ability to revitalize rural economies, create jobs, preserve farmland, and even foster stronger connections between urban and rural
It's
populations.
like a ripple effect, isn't it? A single farm opening its doors to visitors can have this positive impact that kind of spreads throughout the entire community.
Exactly. And as consumer demand for, local food and those authentic hands-on experiences continues to grow, agritourism is poised for even greater expansion in the years to come.
It's exciting to think about.
Oh,
But with that expansion comes a responsibility, I think, to make sure that agritourism is sustainable and benefits everyone involved.
you're absolutely right. It's not just about economic growth. It's about balancing that growth with environmental stewardship, community well-being, and the preservation of our rural heritage.
So as we reach the end of our deep dive, I think it's time for our final thought-provoking question. And this one is for you, our listener. What role can you play in shaping the future of agritourism in Oklahoma?
Whether you're a landowner, a visitor, a policymaker, or simply a concerned citizen, we encourage you to think critically about the opportunities and challenges that lie ahead. How can we ensure that agritourism is a force for good in our state, benefiting both our rural communities and those who visit them?
That's a powerful question, and one worth pondering as we move forward. And I hope this deep dive has given you the knowledge and inspiration to contribute to that conversation in a meaningful way.
Agritourism is a journey, not a destination. And it's a journey we're all on together. It's exciting to think about where this path will lead Oklahoma in the years to come.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of agritourism. We'll see you next time for another insightful exploration. This episode was produced by Mary Westman, Oklahoma attorney, with assistance from AI.